The asteroid field around Kepler-7 stretched endlessly in all directions, a graveyard of rock and ice that held fortune for those brave enough to mine it. Ethan Blake had been working the outer rim for 3 years now, long enough to know every shadow and crater by heart. Long enough to stop jumping at every unusual blip on his scanner, which was why the metallic signature half hidden behind asteroid K447 caught his attention. Control, this is Mining Unit 7. I'm reading an anomalous contact. Definitely artificial. Ethan guided his small excavation craft closer, its industrial lights cutting through the darkness. Copy that, 7. Investigate and report. What he found made his breath catch in his throat. The object wasn't human in origin. That much was immediately clear. The ship's hull curved in impossible ways, seeming to bend light around its edges. It was beautiful and alien, about the size of a personal transport. But unlike anything in Earth's fleet registry, more concerning were the scorch marks along its side and the way it drifted lifelessly through space. Ethan had 2 choices: report it to the mining corporation and watch them swarm the site like vultures, or investigate himself. His conscience, already heavy from 3 years of corporate strip mining, made the decision for him. He maneuvered, his craft alongside the alien vessel, and extended the docking tube. The seals engaged with a soft hiss that somehow sounded different than usual, more musical if metal could sing. The airlock opened to reveal an interior that defied human engineering principles. Organic curves replaced harsh angles, and the walls seemed to pulse with a faint, warm light. The air tasted cleaner than anything pumped through the mining station's recyclers. "Hello?" His voice echoed strangely in the confined space. "Is anyone—" A panel slid aside with liquid grace, and she emerged. Ethan's first thought was that she moved like water given form. Her skin was pale green, the color of sea glass, and her hair fell in waves of deep crimson that seemed to catch light that wasn't there. She had 2 arms, 2 legs, 5 fingers on each hand, familiar yet utterly alien. Most striking were her eyes, large and silver-flecked, regarding him with a mixture of caution and curiosity. She was beautiful in a way that made his chest tight. "You are not of my kind," she said, her voice carrying an accent that made English sound like music. Each word was precisely formed, as if she'd learned the language from ancient texts rather than conversation. "Human," Ethan managed, then cleared his throat. "I'm human, from Earth. I saw your ship was damaged." Her eyes narrowed slightly. "And you came to salvage it." "To help," he said quickly, "if you need help." She studied him for a long moment, and Ethan felt as though she were looking directly into his soul. Finally, she stepped aside, a gesture that somehow conveyed both invitation and resignation. "I am Virathea of the Elian Scouting Fleet. My vessel's power core was damaged by micrometeors. I have been—" She paused, searching for the word. "Stranded for 2 cycles. 2 days," Ethan translated, then caught himself. "Sorry, I meant I can help with the repairs. I'm an engineer." Something shifted in her expression. Surprise, perhaps. "You would do this? Without compensation?" The question puzzled him. "You're stuck out here. Of course I'd help." For the first time since he'd met her, Virathea smiled. Not the diplomatic expression he might have expected from a scout, but something genuine and warm that transformed her entire face. "Your species continues to surprise me, Ethan Blake of Earth." He blinked. "How did you—" "Your identification beacon," she said, but her smile widened slightly. "Among other things." As they worked together to repair her ship's power coupling, Ethan found himself stealing glances at her graceful movements, the way she seemed to commune with her technology rather than simply operate it. When their hands accidentally brushed while reaching for the same tool, the contact sent an unexpected warmth up his arm. "Why were you out here alone?" he asked, as they took a break, sharing water from his emergency supplies. Virathea was quiet for so long he thought she wouldn't answer. When she finally spoke, her voice was softer. "I am what you might call a seeker. I study other species, other worlds. My people prefer to observe from a distance, but I—" She gestured vaguely. "I wanted to understand, not merely watch." "Lonely work," Ethan observed. Their eyes met, and something passed between them, a recognition of shared solitude that needed no translation. "Yes," she whispered. "Very lonely." When her ship's systems hummed back to life, Virathea turned to face him fully. "You have given me more than repair, Ethan Blake. You have given me hope that understanding between our kinds is possible." As she prepared to leave, she paused at her ship's threshold. "Will you be here again? In this place?" "Every few days," he said. "It's part of my route." "Good." Her smile returned, enigmatic and promising. "Perhaps we will speak again of lonely work, and other things." After her ship disappeared into the asteroid field, Ethan sat in his craft for a long time, staring at the stars and wondering if he'd just imagined the most extraordinary encounter of his life. He hadn't, and deep down he already knew this was only the beginning. 3 days passed before Virathea returned, and Ethan had begun to wonder if their encounter had been a dream, born of too much solitude and recycled air. He was running routine scans on Sector 7 when her ship materialized from behind a rotating chunk of iron ore, its graceful lines a stark contrast to his utilitarian mining vessel. "Ethan Blake." Her voice came through his comm system, warm with what sounded like genuine pleasure. "I hoped I would find you here." "Virathea." He couldn't suppress his smile even though she couldn't see it. "Your ship's running well?" "Perfectly, thanks to your skilled hands." There was a pause. "I was wondering, would you care to share a meal? I've brought provisions from my world, and I am curious about yours." They met aboard her ship this time, and Ethan marveled again at its organic beauty. The dining area was a curved alcove that seemed grown rather than built, with surfaces that adjusted to accommodate their different physiques. Virathea had prepared what she called sustenance crystals, translucent cubes that dissolved on the tongue, releasing flavors he couldn't begin to describe. "It tastes like starlight," he said, causing her to laugh, a sound like wind chimes in a gentle breeze. "That is poetic for an engineer," she observed. "On Aelia we would say it tastes like the first breath of dawn." In return, he shared his emergency rations, apologizing for their mundane nature. But Virathea examined each item with scientific fascination, asking about Earth's agricultural systems, weather patterns, and seasons. "Your world changes?" she asked, eyes widening. "The temperature shifts, the landscape transforms?" "Every few months," Ethan confirmed. "Spring brings new growth, summer is warm and bright, autumn shows us colors like your hair, and winter covers everything in white snow." Virathea touched her crimson locks self-consciously. "My hair color is considered unusual among my people. We are typically pale in all aspects." "It's beautiful," he said without thinking, then felt heat rise in his cheeks. Her silver-flecked eyes met his, and for a moment, neither spoke. The silence stretched, charged with something neither quite dared to name. "Tell me about Aelia," Ethan said finally. Her expression grew wistful. "Imagine cities that grow like crystals from the ground, reaching toward triple suns. We are a people of harmony, of shared consciousness. What one feels, others sense. What one knows, all may know." That sounds, he struggled for words, overwhelming. "It can be, especially for one who thinks differently." She traced patterns on the table's surface. "I have always felt separate, too curious about the unknown, too eager to experience rather than simply observe. Is that why you became a scout?" "My people saw it as a way to channel my irregularities productively, study other species from a safe distance, report back, maintain our policy of non-interference." "But you wanted more." "I wanted to understand, to truly know, not just observe." She looked at him directly. "Do you know what it is like to be different among your own kind?" Ethan thought of his years on the mining station, choosing isolation over the corporate politics of Earth's colonies. "Yeah, I do." Over the following weeks, these meetings became regular occurrences. Virathea would appear at different coordinates, always with an excuse. investigating asteroid compositions or studying local radiation patterns. But Ethan began to recognize the truth in her silver eyes. She came to see him. He started bringing better food, real coffee from his personal stash, books and music from Earth. She taught him words in her language, her fingers occasionally brushing, his as she guided his pronunciation. Each touch sent electricity through his nervous system. "Vanel," she said one evening as they watched a meteor shower from the observation deck of her ship. "It means one who brings light to darkness." "What does Virathea mean?" She was quiet for so long he thought she wouldn't answer. "Seeker of forbidden knowledge." Their eyes met in the reflection of the transparent aluminum, and Ethan felt the weight of that confession. "Some knowledge is worth the risk," he said softly. She turned to face him fully, and he saw his own growing feelings reflected in her expression. Wonder, fear, and something deeper. "On Aelia we are not permitted to form attachments with other species. It is considered dangerous to our collective harmony." "And on Earth," Ethan replied, "most people think I'm crazy for choosing to live out here alone." "Are you?" she asked, stepping closer. "Crazy?" "Probably." He reached up to touch a strand of her crimson hair, marveling at its silky texture. "But I've never felt more sane than when I'm with you." The space between them seemed to shimmer with possibility. Virathea's hand found his chest, feeling his heartbeat. "Your heart moves so quickly," she whispered. "Yours too." He could feel it through their contact, a rhythm that seemed to sync with his own. When she rose on her toes to kiss him, it was gentle at first, a question more than a statement. But when he responded, pulling her closer, the kiss deepened into something that felt like coming home and discovering a new world simultaneously. They broke apart breathless, foreheads touching. "This is forbidden," she whispered, but her hands remained on his face. "This is right," he replied, and kissed her again. Above them, the meteor shower painted the darkness with streaks of light, as if the universe itself was celebrating their connection. In the vast emptiness of space, two lonely souls had found something worth the risk of everything they'd known. But as Virathea melted into his embrace, neither could foresee the storm their love would soon unleash, or the choice between duty and desire that would test the very bonds they were only beginning to explore. For now there was only this moment, this kiss, and the revolutionary idea that love might indeed be the rarest mineral in all the galaxy. "Stay," Ethan whispered against her lips. "For tonight," she agreed. And in that simple promise lay the seeds of both their salvation and their doom. The weeks that followed their first kiss transformed both their lives in ways neither had anticipated. What began as stolen moments between patrol routes evolved into something deeper, more dangerous, and infinitely more precious. Virathea's ship became their sanctuary. In the soft, pulsing light of her quarters, they discovered each other with the careful reverence of explorers charting unknown territory. Her skin was warm despite its pale green hue, and when Ethan traced the delicate lines of her collarbone, she shivered in ways that had nothing to do with temperature. "Your touch," she whispered one evening as they lay entwined on her bed. "It creates sensations my people never speak of." "Good sensations?" He kissed the hollow of her throat, tasting something faintly sweet like morning dew, overwhelming ones. Her fingers tangled in his hair. "Among my people, physical contact is limited, purposeful. What we share is forbidden, revolutionary." She pulled back to look at him, her silver eyes intense. "Ethan, when I touch you, I feel things that exist nowhere in our collective consciousness. It is as if you have awakened parts of me that were sleeping." He understood. Every caress, every kiss, every moment of skin against skin felt like discovering fire. When she gasped his name, her accent making it sound like poetry, he felt powerful, enough to move planets. Their lovemaking was a dialogue between species, gentle explorations that grew bolder as trust deepened. She marveled at the roughness of his calloused hands, while he was fascinated by the way her skin seemed to shimmer, In starlight, they learned each other's rhythms, each other's needs, finding harmony in their differences. "I never understood," she said one night, her head on his chest as his heart gradually slowed, "why other species speak of love as if it were a force of nature. Now I know. It is not metaphor. It is truth." But their paradise existed in a precarious bubble, and reality had ways of intruding even into the deepest space. The first warning came through Ethan's corporate communications. Mining Director Harrison's face appeared on his screen with barely concealed excitement. "Blake, I've been reviewing your sector reports. Some interesting anomalies in your patrol patterns. Care to explain?" Ethan kept his expression neutral. "Just being thorough, sir. The asteroid field's been more active lately." "Active?" Harrison's smile was predatory. "That wouldn't have anything to do with the unidentified energy signatures our deep scanners have been picking up, would it, sir?" "Don't play stupid, Blake. You've made contact, haven't you? Alien contact." Harrison leaned forward. "This could be the break we've been waiting for. Think of the technological advances, the mining rights, the possibilities." Ethan's blood chilled. "I haven't made any official contact. But you've made unofficial contact." It wasn't a question. "Blake, this is bigger than both of us. I'm sending a team to your coordinates. We need to establish formal relations, negotiate resource agreements, the work." The communication ended, leaving Ethan staring at the blank screen with growing dread. When he told Verathea, her reaction was worse than he'd feared. "A team?" Her face went pale, the green of her skin fading to an almost translucent white. "Ethan, you do not understand. If my people discover what we have done, what would happen?" She turned away, her shoulders trembling. "Exile. Complete severance from the collective consciousness. For an alien it is. It is a form of death. But surely they'd understand. No." Her voice was sharp. "Our laws exist for reasons carved in pain. Centuries ago, emotional attachments to other species led to wars, to the near destruction of entire worlds. We swore never again." Ethan pulled her into his arms, feeling her fear like a living thing between them. "We'll figure something out. There is more." Her words were muffled against his chest. "I have been summoning signals to maintain my cover. My commander, Cathran, grows suspicious. He believes I have been compromised by extended isolation." "How long do we have?" "Days. Perhaps hours." They held each other in the starlight, both understanding that their time was running out like atmosphere through a hull breach. That night, their lovemaking took on a desperate edge. Every kiss carried the weight of potential goodbye. Every touch was memorized against an uncertain future. Verathea cried as they moved together, her tears tasting of salt and starlight. "I would choose exile," she whispered as they reached their peak together. "I would choose you." "And I would choose you over every world in human space," he replied, and meant it with every fiber of his being. They lay awake until dawn, or what passed for dawn in the eternal night of space, making plans that felt increasingly futile. Hide deeper in the asteroid field, find a way to fake her death, steal away to some uncharted world where neither of their peoples would find them. All of it was fantasy, and they both knew it. The end came sooner than expected. Verathea's communicator chimed with an incoming transmission, just as Ethan was, preparing to return to his own ship. The holographic figure that appeared was tall and austere, with the same pale green skin as Verathea, but silver hair, and eyes like chips of ice. "Scout, Verathea, you will report to alien command ship Vanith immediately for debriefing and neural evaluation." "Commander Cathran," Verathea replied, her voice carefully neutral. "I am conducting scheduled observations of—" "You are conducting unsanctioned interactions with an alien species." Cathran's gaze seemed to look directly at Ethan, though that should have been impossible. "Interactions that have compromised your ability to serve the collective." Verathea's hand found Ethan's, squeezing tight. "I have 12 hours to complete my current survey," she said. "Then I will report as ordered." You have 6 hours. Failure to comply will result in your classification as a rogue agent. Cathran's image flickered out. They looked at each other with the knowledge that everything had changed. 6 hours, Virathea said softly. 6 hours, Ethan agreed. It wasn't enough time to say goodbye to a love that had redefined their understanding of the universe. But it was the time they had, and they would make it count. Neither spoke of the plans forming in their minds, plans that would make them both outcasts, but might, just might, give them a chance at something more precious than belonging. Love, after all, was worth any price, even freedom itself. The alien command ship Voneth emerged from hyperspace like a predator, materializing from shadow. Sleek, massive, and utterly alien. Its crystalline hull caught starlight and twisted it into patterns that hurt human eyes to look upon directly. Ethan watched from his hidden position behind asteroid K221, his mining ship's systems powered down to minimal signatures. Virathea had insisted he stay away, but he couldn't abandon her. Not now, not when everything hung in the balance. Through his long-range scanners, he watched her graceful scout ship approach the command vessel. His hands clenched the controls as he imagined her boarding, facing Commander Cathran's interrogation. They had used their final hours to plan this moment, but plans felt hollow when faced with the reality of potential permanent separation. The wait stretched endlessly. Minutes crawled by like hours until finally, his comm system crackled to life on the emergency frequency they had established. Ethan. Virathea's voice was strained, barely above a whisper. The neural scan revealed everything they know about us. His heart stopped. Where are you? Detention cell. But Ethan, listen carefully. They believe you manipulated me somehow, used some kind of human mind control. Cathran is sending a capture team to your coordinates. Ice flooded his veins. What are they going to do to you? Memory reconditioning. Complete neural restructuring. I will... Her voice broke. I will not remember you. I will not remember myself. No. The word came out as a growl. No, I won't let that happen. You cannot stop this. Please, just run. Get as far from here as... The transmission cut to static. Ethan stared at the communication panel, his mind racing. Through his scanner, he could see small ships detaching from the Vaneth, hunter-killers designed for precisely this kind of mission. In minutes, they would surround him, and any chance of saving Virathea would be lost. He had one advantage. They didn't know about the modifications he'd made to his mining ship over the years. The plasma cutters designed for asteroid work could be reconfigured for other purposes. The cargo bay held enough explosives to level a small moon, and his knowledge of the asteroid field was complete. It wasn't much, but it was enough. The first alien fighter found him exactly where he'd wanted, in the shadow of the largest asteroid in the field, its bulk hiding them both from the command ship's sensors. The plasma cutter, recalibrated to weapons frequency, sliced through the fighter's shields like paper. One down. The others adapted quickly, but Ethan had spent 3 years learning every hiding spot, every gravitational anomaly, every piece of cover the field offered. He led them on a deadly game of hide and seek among the floating mountains, picking them off one by one. But even as he fought, he knew he was buying time, not victory. The Voneth carried dozens of fighters, and soon Commander Cathran would tire of the game and bring the full weight of alien technology to bear. The end came when Cathran's voice boomed across all frequencies. Human Ethan Blake, you have demonstrated considerable resourcefulness. But this ends now. Surrender and the female will be granted a clean reconditioning. Continue to resist, and I will ensure her final memories are of pain. Ethan's hands stilled on the controls. Around him, the remaining alien fighters held their positions waiting. Let me speak to her, he said finally. Very well. Virathea's image appeared on his screen, but it wasn't the woman he loved. Her face was bruised, her silver-flecked eyes, dull with some kind of neural suppressor. Ethan, she said, her voice mechanical, you must surrender. Resistance is futile. but even drugged and beaten, she found a way to communicate. Her left hand moved in a subtle pattern they had developed. During their time together, a silent language of touch made visible. The message was clear. Plan 7. Now. Plan 7. The most desperate of their contingencies, the one they had hoped never to use. I surrender, Ethan said, and meant it. The capture was swift and efficient. Alien soldiers in flowing armor that seemed to bend light around its edges boarded his ship and restrained him with energy bonds that felt like cold fire against his skin. He was brought aboard the Vaneth and marched through corridors that defied geometry, past walls that seemed to pulse with their own heartbeat. Commander Cathran waited in what could only be the ship's central command chamber, a vast space that existed in too many dimensions at once. The alien commander was tall even by his people's standards, with silver hair that moved as if underwater, and eyes like frozen starlight. So, Cathran said, his voice carrying harmonics that resonated in Ethan's bones, you are the human who corrupted one of our scouts. I loved her, Ethan said simply. And she loved me. Cathran's expression didn't change, but something cold flickered in his eyes. Love. Your species' great weakness. The emotion that drove you to nearly destroy yourselves before you learned to contain it. We never learned to contain it. We learned to live with it. And look where it has brought you. Cathran gestured, and guards brought Verathea forward. She was barely conscious, the neural suppressors having taken their toll, but when her eyes met Ethan's, he saw a flicker of the woman he loved still fighting to surface. Watch, Cathran commanded, and technicians began connecting neural interfaces to Verathea's temples. Watch as I erase every trace of your contamination from her mind. The machines hummed to life, and Verathea screamed. It was then that Ethan activated Plan 7. The small device hidden in his tooth cavity had been Verathea's creation, a molecular disruptor keyed to alien technology. She had given it to him during one of their final meetings, a last desperate measure they both prayed would never be needed. The pulse was invisible, but its effects were immediate. Throughout the Vaneth, systems began to fail. Lights flickered. Gravity fluctuated, and most importantly, the neural reconditioning equipment sparked and died. In the chaos that followed, Verathea broke free from her restraints with strength born of desperation. Together, she and Ethan fought their way through corridors that were rapidly becoming death traps as the ship's failing systems turned hostile. They reached her scout ship just as the Vaneth's main power core began an unstable resonance cascade. With alien fighters exploding around them and the command ship tearing itself apart, they fled into hyperspace, leaving behind everything they had ever known. But they were together. Bruised, hunted, branded as traitors by both their peoples, but together. As the stars stretched into lines around them, Verathea collapsed into Ethan's arms, the suppressors finally wearing off. Where do we go? She whispered. I don't know, he admitted. But we'll find somewhere. We have to. Behind them, the Vaneth died in a pulse of crystalline fire, taking with it any chance of return to their old lives. Ahead lay only uncertainty, exile, and the slim hope that love could survive in the vast darkness between the stars. They were alone now, completely, utterly alone. But they were alone together, and somehow, that made all the difference. 2 years later, the planet had no name in any star chart, just a set of coordinates that Verathea had found in the deep archives of her scout ship before they were deleted by alien command. It orbited twin stars in a system so remote that space, traffic was virtually non-existent, a world of vast purple plains and silver forests that sang in harmony with the wind. They had named it Sanctuary. Ethan wiped sweat from his brow as he finished installing the last solar collector on their home's roof. The dwelling itself was a fusion of human engineering and alien organic architecture, grown rather than built, its walls curving like living wood but reinforced with titanium steel supports. It was beautiful and functional, a perfect metaphor for their relationship. The power grid is stable, he called down to Verathea, who was tending their garden in the courtyard below. She looked up at him, her crimson hair catching the light of both suns, and smiled with the radiance that still took his breath away after all this time. The pregnancy showed now, a gentle curve beneath her flowing garments that spoke of the miracle they were creating together. "Excellent timing," she replied. "The communication array is receiving another signal." Ethan climbed down quickly. Over the past 6 months, they had begun receiving messages from across the galaxy. Other couples like themselves, interspecies pairs who had found love across the void and been cast out for it. Their story somehow had spread through underground networks and refugee channels. The latest message was from a Zephyrian trader named Kel and his human partner, Sophia. They had been living in hiding on a cargo ship for 3 years, barely surviving, always running. "We've heard about your settlement," Sophia's voice crackled through the subspace transmission. "Is it real? A place where couples like us can live freely?" Virathea looked at Ethan, and he nodded. They had discussed this moment many times. "Yes," Virathea transmitted back. "It's real, and you're welcome here." Their first refugees arrived 2 weeks later, not just Kel and Sophia, but a small convoy of misfits and outcasts. A Rigelian diplomat who had fallen in love with a human archaeologist, twin human sisters married to Centaurian shapeshifters, an elderly Volcari engineer, and his young human apprentice who had become much more than teacher and student. Each couple brought their own skills, their own stories, their own hopes for a future where love transcended species boundaries. Ethan found himself coordinating construction projects while Virathea used her diplomatic training to mediate conflicts and establish community guidelines. "We're becoming a town," Ethan observed one evening as they watched the latest group of arrivals set up temporary shelters in the valley below their home. "We're becoming a symbol," Virathea corrected, her hand resting on her rounded belly. "Proof that love can build as well as destroy." The proof of that came the night their daughter was born. Virathea's labor began during a storm, twin lightning displays from both suns creating a natural fireworks show across the purple sky. Dr. Elena Vasquez, the human physician who had arrived 3 months earlier with her Altarian partner, supervised the delivery with steady competence, but it was the birth itself that left everyone speechless. The baby emerged perfect. 10 tiny fingers, 10 tiny toes, a dusting of hair that seemed to shift between crimson and brown depending on the light. Her skin was pale pink with the faintest hint of green undertones, and when she opened her eyes for the first time, they sparkled with silver flecks that caught the starlight. "She's beautiful," Elena whispered, tears streaming down her face. "She's absolutely beautiful." Ethan held his daughter for the first time, and felt his world reorganize around this tiny, perfect being. She was living proof that their love was more than rebellion. It was evolution. "What should we call her?" he asked Virathea, who was crying and laughing simultaneously. "Stellanai," Virathea said without hesitation. In the ancient tongue, it means bridge between stars. "Stella," Ethan repeated, testing the human diminutive. "I like it." As if responding to her name, baby Stella wrapped her tiny fingers around Ethan's thumb and squeezed with surprising strength. At that moment, he understood what they had truly accomplished. They hadn't just found love across the species divide. They had created a future. Word of Stella's birth spread through their growing community like wildfire. She became the unofficial Princess of Sanctuary, passed from couple to couple, each marveling at the living symbol of what was possible when barriers fell away. More importantly, she became hope. "Look at her," said Mira, the Rigelian diplomat during a community gathering when Stella was 6 months old. "She doesn't see species when she looks at us. She sees family." It was true. Stella gurgled happily, whether held by her human father, her alien mother, the shape-shifting Centaurians, or any of the dozen other species that now called Sanctuary home. To her, love had no barriers because she had never been taught that barriers should exist. On Stella's first birthday, they held a celebration that drew representatives from settlements on 3 other worlds, places that had sprung up following Sanctuary's example. The party lasted 3 days and featured foods, music, and traditions from across the galaxy. That night, as they put their daughter to bed in her crib carved from native silverwood, Thea and Ethan stood together watching the twin moons rise over their adopted world. "Do you ever regret it?" Thea asked quietly. "Everything we gave up to be here?" Ethan considered the question seriously. He thought of Earth's blue oceans, which he would never see again, of his family, who probably believed him dead, of the simple life he had planned before a damaged alien scout ship changed everything. Then he looked at his wife, for they had married in a ceremony that blended human and alien traditions, and at their sleeping daughter, and at the thriving community they had helped build. "No," he said firmly. "I regret nothing." Thea smiled and leaned against him. "Nor do I, though sometimes I wonder what my people would think if they could see what we've built here. Maybe someday they'll understand. Maybe." She paused. "Ethan, there's something I need to tell you." He turned to look at her, noting the mixture of excitement and nervousness in her expression. "I'm pregnant again." The words hit him like a physical force. Joy, terror, and overwhelming love crashed over him in waves. "Are you sure?" "Very sure." She took his hand and placed it on her still flat stomach. "Dr. Vasquez confirmed it yesterday. We're going to have another bridge between the stars." Ethan kissed her then long and deep, tasting starlight and forever on her lips. Around them, sanctuary hummed with the quiet sounds of a community at peace. Children playing, couples talking softly, the gentle sounds of lives being lived without fear. "You know what this means?" he said when they finally broke apart. "What?" "We're going to need a bigger house." Thea laughed, that wind chime sound that had captivated him from their first meeting. "I love you, Ethan Blake of Earth." "And I love you, Thea of Alia, seeker of forbidden knowledge, finder of infinite possibility," she corrected. Above them the stars wheeled in their courses, indifferent to the boundaries mortals drew between worlds and species. Love, it seemed, was the one force in the universe that recognized no limitations, not distance, not time, not the artificial barriers erected by fear and prejudice. In their daughter's soft breathing, in the growing life within Thea's womb, in the laughter echoing from houses throughout their valley, the future itself was taking shape. It was a future where love truly did conquer all, and it was only the beginning.